View from the Gutters, episode 55. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Mouse Guard, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 4311.
Well, we should start talking about this.
I'm ready. Was it episode 55?
Yeah.
All right.
5-5.
Welcome to the show. I'm Andrew Chard.
I am Joe Preddy.
I am Tobiah Panchin.
And I'm Kate Reynolds.
And I am Joe Preddy. Ha!
And Kate is still sitting in the wrong place, but I remembered this time.
Yeah.
I was listening to last week's episode, and I told myself that I would not let Kate be the last.
Oh, I hate you. That's why I come to this fucking show.
You just want to say your name, and then you're done.
You're done. You can go home, Kate. That's good. Just comes and collects his paycheck and goes
just,
home.
All right. And I'm
Kate
Kid Reynolds.
bitches.
Where's my money?
He's fucking asleep for half the episode.
Drops
Oh, God.
like
No,
leaves.
okay. I had an energy drink today, so I won't fall asleep
good.
on the episode.
It's a good thing that we're not part of like a union shop, because once your name is on it, you get paid for the whole thing, no matter how much you're in there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I would just be like, Joe Preddy.
Technically, I guess we are union then.
Yeah.
We divide our pay evenly.
Yeah, we do. $0 divides very nicely.
It does.
Wait, you didn't tell him that we were...
Oh.
Never mind.
Yeah, with $0.
$0.
If I ever find out that you guys are holding out on me, I'm going to enact my secret death files.
Wait,
You
we get
remember
paid
what
for
that is?
It's just a call. It's
like,
not
I
even-
run you
why
over
do you
with
need
my
a file
car?
for that? Are you going to forget?
I want to run over a lot of people with my car. I don't
Literally,
Oh, it's just
yeah,
like a list.
You could
Yeah.
take your
File.
entire death file and write it on the back of your hand.
I thought it was just like a
Very
file.
small.
I thought it was just like a file of how to kill us. I was like, you don't need a file for that. This is only one
the thing
way.
is that
Wait,
even
are
if-
you describing your enemies list?
I could have a secret.
his Tower
I
of
could have
Babel
a
secret files.
file of enemies, a la Batman, and you guys would be so convinced that it was just that I was going to run you over with my car that you would never see what I really had planned coming.
Does it run me over with a different car?
Run you over with a yes, that's exactly what it is.
I'm so smart.
It's each one of you with your arch nemesis car. I don't know. Toby gets run over with his own car though. That would be the.
I'm 100% safe because my
Yeah.
own car can't go faster than about 3 miles an hour.
Well, no, basically,
I can walk faster than my car.
Basically,
The bumper
I just
just
get you in front of it
collapses
on
in
a
by
hill and
itself.
push it down after you.
That's why it'll be so surprising. You'll be like, I've never seen my car go that
That
fast.
would be, that would be so fucking demoralizing.
So, what are we talking about this
We're
week?
talking about Mouse Guard,
Meesguard.
and we read Fall, Winter, Spring, which was a one-shot, which is kind of a bridge between Winter and the Black Axe.
Yep.
Well, the Black Axe is really a prequel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
But
it's
I
not
mean,
exactly a bridge, but it's kind of a follow-up to Winter and kind of
it's-
introduces the Black Axe a little bit.
yeah, because
it
at the end of
collected?
Black Axe, it's... clearly, if you are playing along, then this won't be a spoiler, but if you are playing along, I'm about to spoil the end of the Black Axe, so just turn it off now. At the end of the Black Axe, it's Liam talking to Saxon and Kenzie, which is kind of... So that's...
But it's only
that's-
the last page.
Yeah, but that's what I kind of... It kind of felt like he was narrating the whole story via
Is it
Kelena's
collected?
point of view.
Kelena.
I'm not sure if it is. It was a free comic book day
I
issue.
think it's at the beginning of Black Axe.
What? Spring?
Spring.
No, it was not in the copy I had anyway.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't remember.
I mean, it could have been, and it would have been, it would have made
It would
sense.
have been
for it to
smart to put it in there.
be. Yeah, because
I read
it's-
the single issue, so I have
Okay.
no fucking
Yeah, I
clue.
read them in the trade, and I can't. I know I've read Spring before.
Which
Yeah.
which actually brings me to one of the first things I really loved about this book is at the beginning of each single issue there was a poem written from Scribe Roybin's point of view. Like his poems that he's writing in the story are actually in the front of each single issue,
Yeah,
which I loved. I thought
they're
that was very awesome.
they're in a different place in the trades. I think they're like in the back.
Yeah, I'm
or-
flipping through my trade of Fall.
Yeah, I don't.
I thought they were at the chapter headings, the poems.
Maybe they are.
When it's and in Fall and Winter, it serves as like
I don't
Since our
actually remember if
last
there were
episode.
any in fall, but Winter and Black Axe had them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there are any poems in fall.
Okay.
Scribe Roybin is the guy with the beetle bro, right?
Yes.
Which is awesome.
And what's her name? Gwendolyn.
Yeah. That's the beetle, right?
No, Gwendolyn is... God damn it.
I thought... I didn't think the scribe was the one with the beetle. I thought it was the one that was...
Rand the Watcher?
No. The one that Gwendolyn comes in looking for. The one that's looking after.
Honestly, after a
And that
certain
was the
point, like,
scribe.
I could not keep all the fucking mice straight.
That is the hardest thing about this book for me, is
Yeah.
that they
Absolutely.
are all mice, and
That-
so it's like really kind of, sometimes I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
They all
I'm
do
still
look
in the
exactly
show
the
this
same.
week, but that actually brings me to something that I hated about this book.
Oh, go for it.
I did not like how many characters there were for the scope of the story. I felt that there were far too many that I was trying to keep
Yeah.
track of, and a lot of the times there seemed to be subplots that never went anywhere.
Well, also, they were introduced for like a few pages, and then I forgot completely who they were. So either if they didn't go anywhere, like I didn't care because I forgot who they were, or if they show up later, I'm like, wait, who is this? Because I have forgotten already by like 4 issues later.
Honestly,
I was
like the two things that this comic really reminded me the most of were Redwall,
Yeah.
obviously, which
Yeah.
is a series of novels that I mean,
Right.
there's like
Which were phenomenal.
there's more than 10 of them. So
oh, I think there's like
a-
at least 20.
I feel like as a kid I read up to like the 8th one and stopped at that
I could
point.
probably
I read at
name 10.
least 12, but I think after that he was so sick that they weren't actually being written by him, just in name.
But
I thought they were like way
yeah,
more.
being a series of novels, there's a lot more room for him to develop a world and a set of characters.
Absolutely.
The other thing it reminded me of is the Night's Watch from Game of Thrones.
The Black Watch.
No, it's the Night's
The
Watch.
North Watch.
It's the Night Watch.
It's the
Oh,
Night-
the Knight's Guard.
no, the Night Watch.
It is the Night Watch.
What, the guards the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taking
Isn't
the
it- it's
when
the
you
Black
when you
Watch,
take
right?
them no when you
No.
take your vows
When you take
for
the
the Night's
black,
Watch
you become part
take
of the Night
black.
Watch.
Oh.
That's what
Why
it's
aren't they
called.
called the Black Watch?
Because then
Because that's the
somebody
name of one of the
might mistake
forts.
them for a piece of jewelry, like a black watch. I don't know.
They don't have watches,
Anachronistically,
Joe.
they would be like, "Oh, you're a black
Probably had wristwatches back
chronometer."
then.
But no,
But-
I think
but-
Black Watch is the name of one of the forts, so they
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
call themselves the Black Watch.
Well, I think there's the Black Fort.
Maybe that's
Dude,
what it
I
was.
read these books a long time ago,
I did too, and I have not seen the show, and I refuse
watched the
to
first
until it's
season.
completely done.
and I don't remember anything. I know like some of the characters' names, but there's a lot of the details have escaped me. But yeah, it does remind me
But the,
of
but
like,
the point is that that's once
Yeah.
again a book series with a lot more room to develop all
Oh,
those
and
characters.
Game of Thrones is immensely dense, but doesn't only deal with the Night's Watch. But Redwall is like, they're for kids book, for young adult books,
Yeah.
like they're pretty thick. Like there's a
No,
lot of
they
stuff
are.
going on in there. There's lots of characters. There's lots of like, you know,
When I was
intrigue
in-
and
Yeah, when I was in middle school, junior high, I read most of the Redwall books, and most of my teachers had too, so it was
Yeah.
something that I could always like talk to my teachers about.
with the exception of like Star Wars books when I was younger reading, I think that Redwall is probably like the fondest memories I have of young adult fiction.
I'm kind of conflicted because I read the first 3
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyed them. And then the ones after that seemed to be increasingly less good.
Well,
and I don't
yeah.
remember them super well, but I read something at one point not too long ago basically saying like there was a lot of like really strong like fundamentalist Christian undertones
Oh,
to the books at a certain point, which I'm not really sure about. I don't remember specifically.
yeah, I don't remember that.
It was, I think that it was that it was there if you looked for it, but if you didn't, then it wouldn't bother you.
Well,
Okay.
there's definitely like that whole, which is an idea that's still in this book, which is the whole, you know, might doesn't necessarily make right, and we're doing what we're doing because what we do is important. Like they're very heroic characters,
Yeah.
and I don't know that that's necessarily like heavy Christian overtones, but I know that like heroic action
Well,
is something that is.
There's another parallel between the two,
Mm-hmm.
which I noticed, at least in Redwall. I mean, it feels like it's stronger there, but
Mm-hmm.
all of like the rats and the stoats and the weasels are like evil and they're born evil, and like the mice and the badgers and those animal characters are all good.
Like the rabbits and stuff. Right. Yeah.
And in this series, like you've got the mice, and then they fought a war with the weasels not too long ago.
But there were also bad mice too.
Right. And you get the sense that like those are two like conflicting animal species that are butting heads.
In the same territory.
It's not that weasels are evil; they're just they're an opposing force.
Right. Well, and actually, what I really love about the Black Axe, which I think is why it's my favorite of the three, is the king of the weasels is like pretty decent.
They're
awesome. Yeah, the ferrets.
They're ferrets?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a pretty decent dude. Like
totally.
Swift justice.
He was one of my favorite characters. Yeah.
I agree.
Like,
I think that
you could tell that the only reason he wasn't eating them was because he wasn't hungry. Like it didn't seem that he killed for sport.
Yeah.
If he killed a mouse, it was because that's what they fucking eat.
Well, and also he was saying like we eat bigger things now. We have like bigger shit to deal with than your tiny mice.
Well, and he specifically says that the work of a hunt should feed more than one belly.
Yeah,
which I thought was pretty cool.
I really liked that whole story a lot, actually.
Well,
I don't know
you
if you
could
guys
argue, though,
start.
that him killing that little mouse isn't actually a hunt, so it didn't matter if it only filled one belly.
Well, but I mean, the thing is, I would make the counter argument in that case that there was no way that Kellinaw was going to go easily. It would have been a fight at the very least. And what the Ferret King was saying was, we just ate. We have no reason to do this. You have my word that I'm not going to eat you.
We've got other shit to deal with.
But that's
basically
one of the things I liked about this was that whereas in Fall, like the Black Axes were definitely like antagonists. They were definitely the bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't ever get that feeling like when he's fighting the fox in the Black Axe or when they fight the snake in the first one. Like, it's not because of a good and evil thing. It's a prey and predator thing, which I really
survival of the fittest
liked.
Yeah.
And how awesome was that fight with the owl?
Yes, that was fucking amazing.
In winter, the art in that book is like unbelievable. When they're just like covered in ice and they're
fucking
like,
art in this book fucking floored me, man. I have not seen such detailed like cross-hatching work for a while. It reminds me of like reading Dave Sim's Cerebus before he had Gerhard come in and do his backgrounds, and he was doing these incredibly detailed backgrounds just by himself, and it became he couldn't do it anymore. He wasn't able to get the books out with any kind of semblance of a schedule because it just took so long. So he eventually hired somebody to do the backgrounds for him, and the fact that Peterson can like do this, man, that blows my mind because the art is by far and away my favorite thing about all of these.
I was just about to say the same thing. My favorite part of this book is the art.
I was actually going to say the same thing as well. I was not super wowed by the story. I mean, it's decent. It's good. It's got a level of complexity even though it's obviously aimed at a younger audience.
And that's what I really liked about it.
But the art is just staggeringly beautiful.
Yeah, the art's what drew me to it.
I wasn't a huge fan of the story, actually. Like, most of the time I was reading this, I didn't care for it. I didn't hate it, but at the same time I was not super drawn in. The Black Axe, I was drawn in. Yeah. But I think mainly that's because there were less characters.
I agree.
Because there were less characters, I could actually tell who the different mice were, whereas in the bigger story of like Fall and Winter, so many of the mice looked the same.
Well, and also you're introduced to three characters right away, like the band of the three guys, like Kinsey,
Saxon and Liam.
And you learn about them more than you do about more than Fall and Winter had the problem where you didn't learn about the characters as much.
Yeah, and there's the two that are like best friends, Kinsey and Saxon.
Kinsey and Saxon.
And they remind me a lot of like Mugen and Jin in Samurai Champloo, but like if you aren't just like assuming that that's the kind of relationship they have, like there's not a lot to dig in really to their friendship
but Winter,
at the beginning.
I think in Winter, I think it's really funny that somebody who liked Game of Thrones so much is complaining about way too many characters. Because I watched the fucking show and I didn't know who half those people were.
Well, I
could not have read those books and kept that straight.
Well, you don't know that because you get more time with them.
It's
true. But the thing,
each of the chapters in the books are told by a certain person, so you're getting their like internal mental turmoil along with the rest of the story.
Also, you get their name like every other line when it's like so and so said versus background character number 6 comes
I
on
had
and
no,
says,
I
blah,
had no
blah,
problem
blah.
keeping the characters straight.
Well, it wasn't
Like,
so much that they like. I had a huge problem keeping those 3 straight. There's not a lot of characterization in those 3 at the beginning. And the thing I like about the Black Axe is like the 3 real main characters. It's the guy with the peg leg.
There's M and Connor and
Kelena. Yeah, the 2 guys that go on the adventure basically to kill a fox. Like, you start to see a lot more about what they're about.
Yeah.
You've also met them before. Like, this is a prequel to their story, so you kind of know like what they're about, and like
you already knew that Kelena was a badass when the story started.
Well, and survives, which is something that I forgot like halfway through because the boat crashed, and I'm like, oh, there's the end of that guy, and I was like, wait, he's in Fall, like of course he's still alive.
Well, you know that both of them live because Connor's in Fall too.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Connor after he loses his leg, I was like, oh yeah, he gets a peg leg, and because he fights the crab at the beginning of Fall,
which is an awesome fight.
Fucking awesome.
I actually didn't remember that. I didn't put that together.
Yeah, that's him. He's in the boathouse. That's, you know.
I mean, I agree with you that there's not a lot of time spent with them, but I think that's a problem of a young universe, you know? And I think there are like Tales of the Guard, volumes 1 and 2 and stuff, which are all like him basically saying, I know all these other talented people that really want to get on this, so I'm going to let them tell out-of-continuity stories about this world. And I think that...
Some of those are really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what... I don't necessarily think it's a lack of characterization that's a problem. It's a lack of time.
Well, I'll agree. But either way, it makes the Black Axe work a lot better.
Absolutely,
in my mind,
because you're able to just concentrate.
You're spending on time with like one character first, and then another one, and then it's like, oh, they finally had a third one. And you're like, I kind of like we're introduced to these characters slowly.
Yeah.
Where Fall is like they're just thrown right in front of you right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're
There
good
are
characters.
18 characters by name, and most of them look the same because they're all mice.
They all have different clothes.
Incredibly adorable mice.
Yeah,
no, they are
true.
incredibly adorable mice, but still, the face of one mouse looks a lot like the face of another
It does,
mouse.
but I think we're also kind of criticizing a young universe because, I mean, he has
that
only
is
done
true.
3
Yeah.
stories, and we're
that's-
talking about
Yeah.
Red Wall
And as they
Game
were going
of
on, the
Thrones.
stories were getting stronger.
Yeah, and I
like,
think...
We're talking about, you know, Red Wall and Game of Thrones and these things that have 20 volumes, 7
that is
huge
true.
books that are multiple thousands of pages.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
give it another 10 years, see how many more books he comes out.
Yeah,
I
and
think-
hope
and
he
then
makes
go
it
back and
absolutely.
read that.
I would actually recommend this, even though like I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped I would. I would still recommend this to people.
I think the thing
I think
that
it is a
Black-
very strong work. I don't
think-
know if it's my cup of tea, but I am excited for new volumes to come out, and I will read them.
I think the thing the Black Axe does the strongest is it leaves you in a place where you can build on what you know. So, like, you're like, okay, well, clearly Liam. I think it's Liam because it's like Lieam or something.
Oh, that would make sense.
But-
Liam or Liam.
Yeah,
either
it's
way.
one of those two. Is going to go off and be the Black Axe now, and Saxon and Kenzie are the only two that know that.
Well,
And-
it's cool because it's 3 books essentially where the end result is that happens. Like, it
Yeah,
takes
exactly.
3 books for that one thing to happen, and the sophistication of storytelling in young adult books is normally not up to
Absolutely.
that standard. And that's what I find so strong about this is, like, if you give this to a kid, not only are you giving them, like, a great young adult book, but you're giving them a complex universe that is still ongoing,
And-
that is, like, the first story arc may be resolved in the first book, but that's not all that's happening there. There's, like, so
Absolutely.
much
It's
going
building
on
on
in
a
that
bigger-
universe. And
yeah,
that's, I agree with Joe, and that one is, like, this is a young universe, and I think that more will happen there. But I think that I'm the most attached to Black Axe because it's like
it's
you're
by
one
far
character.
the-
But you need, I think, that without having read Fall and Winter, like the Black Axe doesn't have nearly as much impact. 'cause
Absolutely
you're not
not.
as attached to this like icon of the universe.
Yeah,
you know? Like
absolutely.
it's cool.
And the
Black
thing I
Axe
love about
reminds
this,
me-
the
I'm
thing.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I just want to make this point real quick. The thing I love about this most is it is a young adult's book that trusts its readers.
Oh yeah,
Which I don't think happens a lot. I think there's a lot of. We've been talking a lot about the Lego movie, which you should go and see because it's great, and about how it doesn't try to be heavy-handed or fill its fucking story with like this kind of bullshit morality that a lot of like younger kid stuff tries to do. It's like, oh, we have to have a lesson, to the point where like
we were talking about this in Brave too.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's just a cool character study between like a mother and daughter.
And you can
like,
have
cool
that,
story.
and you can. I think the great thing about this is that this isn't trying to like impress upon its readers anything other than, here's this world, here's what's going to happen. You know, you come in on this place where like this guard that's been there forever is now realizing that it's past, the things that's done in the past aren't going to work anymore, that it needs to do more, that it needs to expand, and you're going to expand with it.
Well, and also they talk in each one of the books about unifying all of the different like mouse territories, which has never been done before.
Right.
That we know of. So like,
and that makes it definitely like, especially with the Black Axe and stuff, it makes it seem like that's what he's built. Like that's what this story will eventually be telling, is
and through
the unification
through the different matriarchs, like how the society is shaped and everything. And I love that there are fucking maps.
Yes.
In this, like, I love that. In the back of Winter, it like shows the way everybody.
Well, and not just maps,
paths.
but breakdowns of the society. So you're like, this is what the mice do, and this is how they do
Common
it.
Jobs, and like, he's thought about this a lot.
Like, I have not seen this. This is well thought out. This is not something that he was just like, oh, I'll just make this a cool little story.
It's obviously an idea that he's been playing with a long time and has a lot of passion for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think with a lot of writers, they have kind of their own pet universe, whether they necessarily do something with that or not. I mean, it's obvious that George R.R. Martin was playing with knight toys.
Yeah.
Way back into childhood, and the genesis of the Game of Thrones universe goes back
and breaking all of them.
Yeah,
throwing them up against the wall.
This is let's cut his head off with a serrated kitchen knife.
One of my absolute favorite manga is Nausicaa.
Yeah,
by Hayao Miyazaki, and it's because it's obvious that he is incredibly passionate about this universe and that he's thought about it forever. And I think that this is an example of one of those universes where he's been thinking about this for a very, very long time, and he's incredibly passionate about the world and the characters.
And one of the things I feel that, I mean, this is a very realistic world. Like, I had no trouble believing that this world could exist. And one of the reasons I found myself thinking is something that Tobiah has said so many times. I think it was a quote from his dad, about like the best science fiction stories, you change one thing and leave everything else the same.
It was from my dad's book, The World Beyond the Hill, but I think the quote is actually from A.E. Van Vogt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You change exactly one thing.
And in this, I felt it's like you change the animals and you change people to animals, and this story is 100% believable.
Well, yeah, and it reads very much like a feudal society, and there's like, you know, there's these, we have these different territories where we're at war with this other country, and their, you know, their territory leads basically directly to our own, the foundations of our city. Like, that's how you see how close they got before the war ended. It's like, wow, that was a, you know, like probably a war that they didn't think that they would win. And so because he's done this where he puts the time, the date, the year on every story, so it's like fall is 1152. 1152, and then the Black Axe is like 50 years earlier or something. He could go and tell the stories from the war and just put the date on them, and it's like, well, I'm not lost because I know where it fits on this timeline.
So am I wrong, or in Winter, do they not say at one point, like, the weasels didn't make this city? This city is older than them.
Yeah, they did. Well, they say the tunnels are older.
Dark Heather.
The tunnels are older. They've just like put up their colors and they're like tiling that they do.
Right, but I thought that was really interesting, is it made me think like, oh, ancient like lost civilizations and stuff,
or just like
the
what
depths
was
of
gotta be
history.
moles.
Or just like
moles.
what
You
was
know
here
it.
that made these, you know, like, was it badgers? Is it like, oh, and also one of the coolest things happens in like a crazy small panel where they show that the mice give tribute to bears, where like it shows them like fighting a turtle and then like fighting a badger, and then like
and that
you
was
see
the
them like
spring one shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then they like cart up the stuff to the bear as it like comes out of hibernation.
It's great because that so beautifully like kind of illustrates,
and it's very subtle.
What Gwendolyn is talking about with this nameless enemy now that they're going to fight, and like talking about it sleeping and like that, and then all of a sudden there's this like bear, and you're like, is she talking about? No, wait, she's talking about all this other stuff that we've already been talking about. But the bear is a nice point because it's like, how would it's you know, in the Black Axe when he's going after the fox, you're like, how the fuck is this gonna work?
Yeah.
But then at the end you're like, oh yeah, that worked really well.
Yeah, that was a cool. I really liked all of Black Axe. Was awesome to me.
I liked all of the battle scenes.
And dude, when the Black Axe fights the owl, we already talked about it before, but it's just like, I have to, you know, go back to it.
Well, it's so cool because it's not just like a fight that happens. Like, they fight it, and they injure it, and it goes away, but then it comes back.
Yeah.
Like, it's this battle that's taking place over a long period of time.
Yeah, the whole,
and like
the whole
that's
issue, or book,
that's
basically
very true to the way that like battles used to be fought.
Yeah.
It's like we think of modern warfare, and it's like we go in and we kill them, and then we beat them, and they're gone.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, no, armies used to have like engagements where you would meet the enemy and you would fight, and then you would separate.
War of attrition.
Yeah. And like they're just this kind of like small squad, and there's this enemy out there that is literally hunting them.
Yeah.
And like they fight it and they weaken it, but they're injured and they have to get away. Like, it's really, really well plotted as a fight. And like there's a lot of tension there.
And artistically, the tension is added because like at first they're walking through the snow, and it's like you can see like part of a tree branch is in the foreground and what looks like the tree trunk. And it's like the Black Axe is like, oh, we're being followed. And then the next panel, they're like a little bit further away. And the third panel, they're like the furthest away. And you can tell that what you thought was the tree trunk is actually an owl watching them. Yeah. And that's the first time you see the owl. And you're like, already the suspense is building. Because you're like, fuck, that thing's going to attack them soon.
Kellen Oz, like, I loved Kellen Oz design. This, with like the shoulder, with like the Spalding or the Spalder,
pauldron.
Like on
it's
his shoulder. Pauldron. A Spaldron, that's what it is. Thank you.
I think it's a pauldron.
Yeah,
pauldron. Is it a pauldron?
I think so.
Yeah.
The shoulder guard.
It's not Spalding.
The Spalder.
Pauldro.
It's called a murmurish.
Yes. All is a letter. I just made it up.
Speederman uses it to spell his name, right?
Yes,
well, anyway, his like cool shoulder pad thing.
Yeah, it's like a tiny turtle shell or something. I was like an acorn or something.
Probably. One of them had ladybug shoulder pads in like the design and the back.
That when he's standing there and he's just like hoot hoot hoot, and the owl answers him, and Liam's like, what did he say? And he goes, this ends in death. You're just like, oh shit. And it was very easy for me to forget that I was reading a book about mice. I was like, oh, shit's gonna go on now.
Well, also the panel where they're under the snow and they have that little vent hole.
Have
the little fire going on. The owl is just like sitting right above them, and it's like, oh shit, this can't go well. Like the art does such a great job of enforcing like the emotions that it wants you to feel.
And I thought that it was awesome just from a naturalist point of view, because owls like do that.
Yeah.
Like they can hear the mice moving under the snow, and they'll like swoop down and just grab it out from under the snow and fly away with it.
It's a burrito, and they're riding a tricycle.
Oh, god damn you. He's quoting a video from Zay Frank. If anybody's not aware, just go onto YouTube and look for True Animal Facts. They're hilarious, but don't watch the one about the frog.
Don't watch the one about the frog, and just remember that
is it gross?
We call owls birds of prey, just like they call us apes of the hamburger.
Thank you for ruining the best joke.
It's not the best joke in that thing. There's many more. There's many more good jokes. Watch them anyways. Watch them all. But yes, no.
What's wrong with the frog one?
It's
horrifying.
Is it gross?
It's pretty horrifying.
That's what I figured.
But no, that it really is. It really felt that he had taken these kind of natural things that happen in the wild and just kind of like added swords to them.
Well, and also I like how he channels these like great kind of storytelling things. I mean, definitely from my childhood, but from I think a lot of our childhoods. Like, there's a very Lord of the Rings feel to a lot of this. Where they're like going after a sacred artifact in the Black Axe, and like in other books where they're just kind of like questing around and like looking for stuff, and someone gets captured and someone gets kidnapped. Like, there's very much Lord of the Rings elements, but I also found like there were some Star Wars elements going on in there.
Yeah.
with like the first time we meet the Black Axe and he's a villain and he's like, no one's ever seen what he looks like behind them. It's like very kind of Vader-y and like intense. Yeah. But also when they go in winter and they're like looking for them after the battle is subsided, like after the storm is done, it's like super like, hey, this is hot. Hairs. This is Empire Strikes Back, where they're going to look for Luke and Han, and it's like, it's just like he does a great job of emotionally capturing the feelings I felt when I was reading those original stories. Yeah, because I'm sure he's seen and read them too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's in keeping with a long tradition of kind of young adult fantasy stories where you're out on an adventure.
Yeah.
And like bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
Out like when you're just out in the world.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't feel like there was no I felt that he did what he had to do, right? Like if a character was going to die, then they had to die.
Oh man, and there is actually like a warning, I guess, if you are not sure about handing this to a kid. Like there's a lot of violence in here, so I wouldn't really like hand.
Well, there's not really a lot of blood though.
Exactly,
No,
like
true.
the people do die, and it is violent, and a lot of the situations are solved by using violence.
It's violence, but not graphic violence.
Yeah, and also I never feel like the violence is not justified by the situation.
Yeah, I mean these are mice who have sworn an oath to protect mouse civilization, and that's what they're doing. Like it's not gratuitous violence. They're not like going out and just fighting for fighting's sake.
Right.
Like there are bad things that threaten them, and they are doing their best to protect the innocent.
Right. And I do always feel like you can justify it in one way. Like when you see the violence that the ferrets are when they catch the crow, which is like probably the most haunting moment of all of the books for me. When M is like, the black, what's his name? Kellenaw. When he's like, I can't understand what it's saying, but this must be torture for M, who's like watching her friend die, basically, and understand everything he's saying. I was like, oh, okay, that's really messed up. And they just like
the saddest mouse ever.
Yeah, it was that moment gets to me, like, and then that's pretty violent, but it's very much a predator prey moment, which is what the book is all about. The one moment of gratuitous violence for me is when the woman is poisoning the well.
Oh, and they
just shoot her with arrows.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like, but they're guards, man. Like, they're there to protect the civilization. It's a different time. It's very much like.
Oh, and then the other two see the body with arrows floating down the water.
Yeah.
Such a cool scene.
Can I just say, I want to name a little point that I was incredibly happy about, right? Mm-hmm. Because so many times in fantasy books, you see these names and you're like, how the fuck do I say it?
Oh, yeah.
And so you start saying it in your head, and you're like, well, that's the way it is. And in the end of Fall, they tell you how to say Kellenaw's name.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you. Because I've been saying Sullenway.
That's what I was doing too.
And I was about to say, like, I was actually saying Sullenawe, or Sullenawi, at first, and then like about book 3 it hit me that if you actually pronounced it Celtic it would be Kellenaw, and so then I started calling him Kellenaw, and then I was like shit, the word escapes me of how I felt when I realized that I was right.
Elated.
Epiphany.
He felt elated. He can't feel epiphany.
You can feel epiphany.
You can?
Oh. Okay, I had the epiphany that it was probably pronounced Kellenaw.
She's got really reasonable rates these days, too. Let me tell you, man.
Oh,
wow. You took that to a bad place.
Worst joke ever
I'm just
told.
ignoring
You should. I'm going to ignore jokes.
So, so after I realized it was probably pronounced Kellenaw, and then it said it, and I was like, fuck yeah!
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if it was
Kate
like...
knows words!
If it was like Welsh pronunciation, or like how I was supposed to read it, and it was cool that it was in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
and it actually became like a running joke when they were like, Selanawi, and he's like, it's pronounced Kellenaw.
And also how he's like, oh, I'm cursed with an old world name. You like kind of find out more about that when you find out Black Axe, that he comes from this like super old world, like very like foundational to the Mouse Guard world family. Like, I thought that was cool.
Since if we're just talking about moments that we thought were cool, I love the part in Fall when they first get to Barkstone, and you just get a montage of them going through the town, and they're like in the tavern, and you see the glass blowing mice and the marketplace mice, and there's a old carpenter mouse who is super duper adorable.
Yeah,
he is so cute.
Well,
half
that's
this
kind
book
of
is
like,
adorable, and the other half is like, wow, that was terrifying.
and that's kind of what I think that kind of speaks to what I'm saying about it being a young universe, is because when I read these books, even though I think there's still things to be told about these mice and kind of a world to be fleshed out, I think the storytelling beats are there. Like, I think he does a good job to kind of craft these worlds and these individual, like, towns and villages.
Oh, yeah.
So that you see that they're actual places and there's actually people working there, you know?
Well, like, each town is so different and so
Absolutely.
based on where geographically it's
It
located.
is, and what it has
which
access
was
to.
Cool. Which I thought was just, like, again,
Yeah.
like, him thinking about the universe really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like
like
each town had a thing that they specialized
The
in
one
doing.
that's in the cedar tree, where like they can't have open flames everywhere because they're inside a tree. Like they have an explanation for like how they heat the rooms and
Right.
stuff. And it was like, that's so. I just like I love universes that are well thought out.
I
Yeah.
love the
was
fact
great.
that what's the name of the Mouse Guard fortress?
Lockhaven.
Lockhaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lockhaven has a beehive in it.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And like the bees are giant.
Yeah, well, because they're everything. This is what I was saying when I pitched it. That it's like it's not quite like Redwall, and the one thing that I really like about this that isn't like Redwall is that everything's in scale.
Yeah.
So like when they come up against a fox in Redwall, the fox is like not very big, but when they come up against it in the Black Axe, it's like the fox is fucking huge.
And was I the
compared.
only one that loved the part where it was like pretty much like release the bees?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's agitate the bees. Like that's literally the line, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, bee on mouse combat. Yes.
So good.
It's something that I never knew that I wanted, that I had been waiting for.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Well,
I
also,
think you knew you wanted it.
I love
Maybe
it.
deep in my heart.
From that situation where my mom said, "Go away, bee," and I'm like, "He doesn't care. He's a bee."
yeah, could be.
The moment where it's like one of the bees is like resting on one of the mouse's arms and he's like petting the giant honeybee. Like I want that now. Like I want a giant honeybee to pet.
Okay,
and,
I
like,
don't
hang
want to
out
be
with.
around a bee that's big enough to sit on your arm the way that bee sat
I
on
do.
that mouse's
He'd
arm.
be adorable.
No,
He'd be
it would
so
be-
cool. Look how fun.
Wait, would it be a bumblebee?
Yeah,
Horrifying.
he'd be a honeybee. He'd be so like fuzzy and adorable.
It would look at you with its compound eyes
Yeah.
while it twitches its feelers.
Yeah, I would be like, "What's up, buddy?"
I guess
I'm just imagining this now, and I'm like, as long as it doesn't have a stinger, I'm down with it.
Well, it probably would have a stinger, but like wouldn't use it because it's gonna die if it uses it. You know.
I mean, I
I'm
guess
not taking his honey.
I would totally like ride around town on a giant tarantula. So
Yeah, I just think what is
saddle
it?
that motherfucker up and be like, yeah, let's go.
If there was like 3% more oxygen in the atmosphere or something, bugs would be like way bigger.
No, well, no, it needs to be significantly
Oh,
more.
is it? Okay.
Like when in the times you're talking about, the amount of oxygen on the planet was like twice as much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was really, because there were no people and it was just filled with trees and plants.
What was back in like the time of the dinosaurs when there were really giant bugs that were
there
that
were
big?
spiders the size of puppies, and dogs.
Right now the atmosphere is like 10% oxygen or 15% oxygen, something like
I
that.
thought it was even less than that.
Yeah, it's about 9%, I think, and then 1% carbon dioxide.
Yeah, it's 80% nitrogen.
Yeah,
and it's
it's
like
mostly
9%
nitrogen.
oxygen, 1% carbon dioxide or 5% carbon dioxide, and then like a bunch of trace elements. And yeah,
Well,
like
there's a
back
lot
in the
of
times of the
hydrogen in
dinosaurs, it
there.
was like 20%
Percent
oxygen.
oxygen. Yeah, there was a lot more going on. There was a lot more oxygen, which is what let those bugs be so big.
Right.
Sweet. I want that. I mean, technically, we could still breathe that oxygen.
I mean,
right?
that just means that like the awful bugs will also be.
Yes.
I mean, how much can you breathe pure
No,
oxygen?
no, you
It'll
can't.
kill you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
you're
would.
right.
If the oxygen was that high, I'm trying to think, it would make you very lethargic, but you'd be able to live.
yeah.
Well,
Would be
you'd
good
get
for you.
used to it after a while, but it wouldn't. I mean, you can't.
Your body would constantly feel bogged down, so you would have much less energy than you do now.
Less energy to run away from giant bugs.
Exactly. We would not be the dominant species.
Because I know that, like, when you're in low oxygen environments, it's just like hard for you to do anything.
Yeah,
You'd think that
I'm
a high
pretty
oxygen
sure
environment
that
would make you like
More
fucking
oxygen in the
Superman.
environment
little
would be
bit
more
more.
oxygen in your blood.
A little bit more oxygen in your blood makes you more energetic.
Yeah.
But a lot would kill you, I guess. But-
Yeah.
Well, because basically at that
poisonous.
point you would have less water in your body, so you would not like have the energy to do stuff.
I mean, not that now is
There's somebody who
time.
actually knows science who's just screaming their head off.
Yeah, that's not.
I have questions
That's not true.
about oxygen.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's not true.
If you're a scientist and you're listening, please write to us at contactfromviewfromtheguys.com and tell me all about giant bugs and
because
oxygen.
it's not. It has nothing to do with water.
And I'm
it has
not
to
gonna
do
go
with your
research
brain.
it. I'm lazy.
And how
Email me.
Your blood
Too much
supply
oxygen.
feeds your brain.
I want to know about big bugs.
Like
and
water
How would I
is
function with
different.
20% oxygen? Would I be Superman or would I be dead? Because I'm going to try this later. So you better email me.
Wait. No, you would not be Superman, Chard.
I'm going to try this later.
I
Email
repeat.
me. I don't trust you, Joe.
I repeat.
I'm going to
Would
try
not
this
be
later.
Superman.
Email me. Keep me alive.
God, well, that just fucking brought the conversation.
I
to
just
a
wanna try.
grinding halt.
Yeah, I was
lot of
honestly a little bit worried because I didn't feel like I had that much to say about Mouse Guard, and I feel like I've really said everything that I can
Yeah,
conceivably
it's
say
not-
about
All I
it.
can say is, like, if you have a kid that is getting into comics and you haven't handed them Mouse Guard, like, you fucking
Well, it's
need
okay,
it.
if you have a 10-year-old or
if you
older-
don't have a kid who's getting into comics, if you have a 5-year-old
Yeah.
who's just starting to get into books, like
Yeah.
doesn't even know how to read yet, put this book on their bookshelf.
Yeah.
Like, just place it in their way because they're gonna love just picking it up and looking at the pictures,
That's
and
a
that's
very
going
good
to
point.
encourage them to want to learn how to read the
Or
words.
even better
Absolutely.
yet, look at it with them and read it to them while they're looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's even, that's.
I mean, it's kind of in that,
on that.
like, it's that kind of perfect transition between picture books and what we think of as like comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
if you're-
love the landscape format. It makes it
Yeah.
feel like a lot more traditional to a picture book, where it's not
Absolutely.
like that weird vertical comic book format that we use for because the magazines used to be like that.
Yeah.
But like this is a lot more like picture books, and I think a lot more how comics will be in a digital age if like people are making stuff for tablets and computers first,
Yeah.
and then printing them later. I feel like we'll see a lot more books like this that are more landscape. So
Absolutely. And I think if you're a fan of like those kind of classic fantasy epics, if you're a fan of like the Lloyd Alexander stuff or any of that like kind of young adult fantasy stuff, don't feel bad about picking this up because I loved this. I really enjoyed reading it, and I did not think I would. But
if you like Conan,
Yeah,
I think you'll like
any of
this.
that
There's
stuff.
not enough good fantasy comics, but this is, this is easily in my top 5 fantasy comics.
Yeah,
just 'cause there
absolutely.
aren't very many,
and you can
but-
pick it up, read it, and then you can pass it on to a niece or nephew or a cousin that or whatever, because it'll be great for them too. My 12-year-old loves this series.
This is definitely my favorite young adult book to hand people after Bone. Like,
Yeah,
if they've
I
read
agree.
Bone and they're like, I love comics now, I read Bone, it's like, I'm going to hand you this, no question asked.
Absolutely.
Like, this is the next book you're going to get. It's not as complicated, but it will be someday.
Yeah,
like Bone took
absolutely.
10 years to get.
Well, and you get them in now while it's young.
Yeah.
because it's going to grow.
When did the first one come out? 2008?
2005.
2005? So it's
Yeah,
almost...
the collection that I have was published in 2008, and it's not the first edition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it said originally published by Archaea Press, copyright 2005.
So, I mean, we're not even 10 years in, but we've already got, 3 big hardcovers and like 2 expanded universe kind of Legends, Tales of the Guard, and like more is going to be coming out, hopefully. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this whole series all the way through, and like I hope that it keeps going my whole lifetime because it's got some
Well, I hope
awesome
it keeps going
stuff.
for at least a while longer.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a comic to hand to just about any kid.
Yeah.
I heartily agree.
All right, let's do some recs. Who wants to go first, Joe?
I'll go first. I'm gonna pitch a book. We spend a lot of time bitching about the New 52 and what they're not doing right. And so
Did you bring a New 52 book?
No, I didn't actually. I actually have an
Small heart attack
unspoken,
there.
which will now be spoken rule. I will never recommend a New 52 book until they get their shit together.
right.
Even though there are a few
fair.
that I really like, and I will talk about them, but I'll never recommend one.
I was
Haven't
telling
you
the guys off the
recommended
air
Court of
that-
Owls?
What? No, Matt has
did.
recommended Court of Owls.
I thought you did once too.
I don't think I have.
Maybe. But I was having a small heart attack because it's all I've been reading this week is New 52
Yeah.
for an unnamed project that I'm working on. And yeah, I need a break.
Yeah.
I guess I have a similar. I mean, the same rule de facto. I won't recommend a book that I think is shitty.
We also
So by simple fact of the fact that at least 98% of the books that DC has put out since the New 52 began are shitty, I'm not going to recommend one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
I think sometimes we need to talk about shitty books. That's why I brought Green Hornet Parallel Lives.
I am not adverse to that. But anyways, I did not physically bring it with me, but I do have a copy of it that is electronic, is Green Lantern Willworld, which is, I think, a great book. It's a Hal Jordan story. I think it's probably one of the best Hal Jordan stories I've ever written.
When is this actually from? Because I've never read it. I don't know anything about it.
I'm not sure if it's out of continuity, but it was a trade that was done, and it was done I'm actually not sure when it came out.
It was post Infinite Crisis, though, wasn't it?
No, it was way post Infinite Crisis, or it's pre Infinite Crisis.
It's post Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Pre Emerald Twilight, I believe.
So that's got to be back. Man, that's a short timeline, because
it was released in 2001, and it's written by J.M. DeMatteis.
Okay, so it's after Emerald Twilight.
And it's illustrated by Seth Fisher.
Okay, so it's out of continuity.
It might be out of continuity.
It may not be out of continuity, but it may be just a telling of an old story, because he's dead at that point.
I think that's actually what... It's actually a tale of a younger Hal Jordan right after he's gotten his power ring. And he basically wakes up one day and he's in this like insane, fantastical world. And he has to kind of piece together what's happening. And the ending is incredibly... I think, you pitch a story like that and it's like, oh, is it going to be one of those stories? But it's not. There's actually a very solid reason why he's there and what he has to do while he's there. And I think it not only... This book was one of the first Green Lantern things I had ever read. And for me, it colored the way I thought about them from this point on.
Yeah.
And I think it may be one of the reasons I have such a hard time dealing with, like, the Rainbow Corps and what Jeff Johns wants to do with the Green Lantern and what he's done with him. Like, I liked some of the ideas I think he's had are pretty solid, but I think he's I feel like he's let it get too big and he's being controlled by the idea rather than controlling the idea. And I think
that's fair. Yeah.
I think that happens.
Well,
sometimes.
And also how much control he has over editorial means that bleeds into like too many books.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And DC editorial right now is its biggest enemy.
Well, because if it was only in like 2 or 3 books, if it was only in like Green Lantern Corps and Red Lanterns or whatever, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it's like, it's permeating the universe.
Honestly, like I think the whole Sinestro Corps thing was a cool idea because they're like the evil anti-lanterns.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah.
Once it expanded beyond the Sinestro Corps into the whole like rainbow colored things, like I know that there are people who really like the Blue Lantern Corps. Like there have been some interesting characters there, but as a concept within the universe, I think the emotional spectrum was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, and also that's kind of where, I mean, Johns had been writing Green Lantern for like at least 5-6 years at that point. So it was, I feel like he was starting to not really love the characters as much anymore. So he's creating all these new characters to tell stories with. But at the same time, still telling Green Lantern stories, and it was like too much.
Yeah.
And it's where I stopped reading.
Yeah, it's
a lot of Green Lantern because I've been reading Jeff Johns' Green Lantern for like 6 years.
Yeah, and it's too much. But this is a great story. J.M. DeMatteis is one of my favorite writers. Mm-hmm. He's written some of my favorite things. But what inspired this is actually I was on Reddit the other day, and there was this picture somebody posted, and it's Hal Jordan looking out a window, and there's this giant disembodied head floating outside the window. And it's really cool, and I love the art in this book. It's been years since I've read it, but I remember reading it at Barnes & Noble. My ex-wife used to work at a Barnes & Noble, and I would go in on Saturdays when my daughter was still young and let her play around, and I'd read comic books. That's because I didn't have any money to buy comic books. But
your ex-wife always used to scare the shit out of me at Barnes & Noble because I forgot that I knew her.
Yes,
and then she would sneak up behind me and be like, "Hey."
Yeah.
I just never knew what to say to her.
I didn't either. Probably why she's my ex-wife. I can't let Audrey hear that. But I really didn't. I really did not have an idea what to say to that. It was not a good idea, but I mean, I digress, right? I think it's a solid story, and I think I think it has a lot of the things we talk about, which is it's a ballsy take on a character. It's kind of a reimagining of a story early in a hero's life, and it kind of sheds new light on that character. And I think, and especially in light of Toby's new blog post on the website,
which will be about a week old by the time.
Which will be about a week old.
And if you haven't read it, you should check it out. We've gotten some really great feedback on it so far. Brant actually posted a comment about it, which I thought was very apropos.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. You should. I mean, it's good. I haven't read it yet.
But I think this kind of storytelling falls into that, and I'd be excited to talk about it. So, Green Lantern, Willworld.
All right.
Cade, what did you bring?
I also brought a DC book, but there's a story before it. So I was playing World of Warcraft over the weekend. I know
as Cade is wont to do.
It's a good start.
As you know, like a lot of people hate me for, but
wow, you said that with some violence.
And I was playing it with my roommate, and we were going around meeting people, doing dungeons, whatnot, and I came upon a character named
dragging kill points.
I came across a character named Supergirl, and I tried to talk to her, and she was role-playing as Supergirl, and I really didn't know what the fuck to say, because, like...
Did you type some Kryptonian to her?
No, I don't have Kryptonian on my font list on Windows.
She only speaks Kryptonian.
Yeah.
And so, like, she was role-playing as Supergirl, and so I'm like, I don't know what to say, because I'm this fat fucking panda, and she's the princess of Krypton.
Is she really?
Well, no, she's just like a lady of Krypton.
Well, yeah, she's like the last female Kryptonian, or was at one point.
Yeah, I guess that you can pretty much declare yourself anything you want at that point.
Yeah, the god emperor of Krypton that no longer exists.
Yeah, it was...
God Emperor of Nowheresville.
Yeah,
so it got me thinking about Supergirl and DC, and I really wanted to read the book that I brought this week, and it's one that has been recommended on the show before by me, and this is Superman Batman Volume 2, Supergirl, and this was the reintroduction of Supergirl as Kara Zor-El to the DC Universe following her death in Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985. So this is 20 years later, because this came out in 2005, and it brings her back, looking for baby Kal-El to take care of. Mm-hmm. And it's written by Jeff Loeb, drawn by Michael Turner, and colored by Peter Steigerwald. And it's I mean, Michael Turner is,
I would say, polarizing as an artist. Like, people either love or hate him.
To put it in a nice way, and I think polarizing.
Well, I think when I see it, I'm like, oh, cool, Michael Turner. Like, I'd like to read this, because he draws people in really interesting ways. Like, they're very much Adonis-like. His women are very like long and lean and, you know, very sexy, and his men are very muscly and large and very sexy, and like that's what he does.
It's
is
very
he, like, draws
classic superhero.
He has a very
pretty
particular
people.
style.
Yeah. I don't.
And I actually, the last time you pitched this, I said like, "Oh yeah, Michael Turner. I really like his artwork." And apparently, I hadn't read anything by Michael Turner in a really long time at that point, because I did borrow that from you and read it after the last time you pitched it. And I'm like, his art is not how I remember it being.
I feel like he's an amazing artist for posters. Like, I would like to own some Justice League Michael Turner posters, because they would look sweet on a wall.
Here's the thing is, I love the way that he draws faces.
Yeah.
I think he draws incredibly beautiful, emotional faces.
Yeah.
The way that he draws bodies, particularly female bodies, kind of feels like it's from another dimension where spines don't exist.
I have behind, Joe is hiding it behind me on the wall, I have the sketch cover of Teen Titans on number 1. It's on the bottom right there. And that's a Michael Turner. And what I really love about that is like how different all of the characters look. Like, Bart Allen as a Flash looks super different than Connor Kent, who looks super different than Starfire, who looks crazy different than Cassie as Wonder Girl. Like, something that I find happens a lot with comic book artists is they draw like the same body for every superhero or whatever. And what I like about that is he kind of, takes that into consideration and like changes their body shape a little bit.
Well, I mean, there's the old, test, like take a character, take away their clothing and hair, and see if you can tell the difference between one character and another.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of artists where you just can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all.
And I think Michael Turner does a really good job of like characterizing the character well, but he does they are very exaggerated. Like Batman in this book has like 800 ab riblets all the time. And that's not a muscle as far as I know.
No.
But
it's not. I'm not gonna say anything. I think my feelings on Michael Turner are well documented.
Yeah, you're not a fan.
But there are elements of his artwork that I do appreciate, but he's incredibly inconsistent, and he's one of those people that is largely responsible for the sexy pinup girl school of comic book art.
Yeah, and I feel
that we've railed against in recent months.
Well, yeah, and I feel like that's true, with the exception that I don't think it's sexist in his case, because he just draws the peak physical condition character for both female and male characters.
We've gotten into this before because that's a common justification.
Yeah, but
and the thing is that on the one hand you have the male power fantasy of the huge muscular man.
Yeah.
And then you have the male sexual fantasy of the super sexy woman.
No, I mean I don't disagree that it's a male power fantasy, but I do agree that he's not just drawing sexy women bent over all the time. His action is very strong, and these female characters are doing cool, strong, heroic things, and when they're doing them, they're not ass out, tits out all the time.
I don't completely hate Michael Turner's artwork. There are elements to it that I like.
They're definitely more offensive artists as far as wow, she's shooting a gun. Why is her ass out, and why is she bent over halfway? That's not how you shoot a gun.
There was.
I don't know what planet you're from, but that's totally how I shoot a gun.
I can't remember who it was, but there was an artist that I kind of like who's doing the cover for the issue 2 of the new Fantastic Four series, which hasn't come out yet. It's in previews, and they're the Invisible Woman's hips are completely dislocated.
Yeah.
It's why did you have to do that? Other than that, it's a great cover, but you just totally stuck her ass out for no reason.
Yeah, and I feel like Michael Turner does draw a very sexy woman, but I feel like he is not as offensive as a lot of artists as far as the poses that they're in, which is the most irritating to me because it takes you out of the experience so much.
I don't ever get to that point with Michael Turner. Michael Turner reminds me of Jim Lee with none of the charm that Jim Lee had in the 90s. I feel
Michael Turner's charming.
Huh?
Michael Turner's art's charming.
I think it's a subjective point. I've never found Michael Turner's art to be. Same thing with.
For me, I think it comes down to that Michael Turner's art looks like classic superhero work, and sometimes you need that. You want to read a book that looks like the classic superhero.
See, the classic superhero artwork is Dan Jurgens.
Yeah, I think this is not. This is 90s Image.
I think
superhero
classic
artwork.
Superhero as Jack Kirby.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Either one of those, Ditko, Kirby, Jurgens, who I think draws in that.
I think Jurgens and
this to me reminds me of classical Greek, Adonis style statues, which are just hyper exaggerated.
I do consider 90s Image to be kind of classic.
I mean, yeah, I think you could say
20 years
but I think
ago.
you have to specify that. But I mean, when you say classic superhero, I hear classic superhero, square jawed.
When I hear classic superhero, I think Dan Jurgens, George Perez, and Art Adams.
Yes, and I think that's fair. And I also think Kirby, Ditko, Steranko.
That's traditional. That's another generation back
of our best friend
ancient
and show favorite Spiderman, who is our personal patron. I've decided that Spiderman is our patron superhero and watches over us.
Can we? This may be sacrilegious, but can we pray to patron superheroes in the same way you would
No,
pray to a
like if
saint.
you want to pray to
right?
Spiderman to watch over you and keep you safe, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think if that's going to happen, we need some plucky, ambitious fan
Wait.
out there to draw us what Spider-Man looks like.
Spiderman.
Excuse me, Spiderman looks
Apparently he
like,
runs a...
so that we can put that
I don't
image on our website and he can be our mascot.
And Cade has to judge it because it sprang from him. He's our prophet. Cade is our prophet.
Wow.
I think that...
No pressure. No pressure.
This went different places than I thought it would.
I think this book is really solid. I think that it's
I like it.
definitely important for a universe that no longer exists. So, like, its importance in a world
That
of
is
comics.
my biggest problem with New 52 because, like, I talk to my roommate all the time. He doesn't actually read comics, but he's interested in the things
Yeah.
I have to say. And a lot of the times I'll be like, you know, this is very defining for the world. And then I'm like, the world that used to exist that no longer does. So I guess it's a moot point.
Well, yeah, and it's something we've talked about time and time again, but that is one of the biggest problems with the New 52 is, like, books like this, I feel like have less importance to a lot of people, but I disagree that they are less important. Like, I still think you should read this book, because I still think it's a cool thing, and if you can look at it historically, which is the way that I love to read the DC Universe, because it does feel like archaeology to me, like, or reading a history book is like, there have been multiple universes and iterations of the DC Universe, and so the crisis era is what I've started calling the modern era. It'll catch on. Is the crisis era of DC, which is, you know, pre-New 52, post Infinite Crisis. That feels like a historic universe that you can, like, go back and read important books from, and this, as well as Joe's pick, those are important books in those universes.
Well, if you're like me and you believe in hypertime, that book is still in canon.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
That's true.
That is an interesting way to think about it, and I think I might start looking at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Good man. I love it when people agree with me.
Yeah, why not?
So I try not to do it.
So for my pick this week, I'm also bringing back a book that I previously pitched, and I pitched it, I
But
think,
is it
more
a
than a
DC
year
book?
ago. It's not a DC
Okay.
book.
Oh, man out today.
It's Rasl by Jeff Smith.
I like that book.
This is a book that he put out, I think back in 2008.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's a black and white comic. It's like 15 issues long. And it's about a scientist who invents these pair of, like, shoulder engines that let you jump from reality to reality.
Basically, dimension hopping. Yeah.
And when the story starts, you find out that he is an art thief, basically. And he jumps to another reality, steals a painting, and then jumps to a different reality where the painting was never stolen, and so he's not wanted for stealing it. And then he sells it.
Yeah.
And as the story goes on, you kind of find out why he's doing this. And, you know, he's being pursued by people who can also jump from reality to reality. Mm-hmm. And you find out what their deal is and what's going on. And there's this whole deeper story that develops. And it's really interesting. Yeah, there's a girl too, because there's always a girl. Mm-hmm. But it's a really fun, really interesting story. It's very different from Bone, but it's got that Jeff Smith quality that you've come to know and love.
Yeah.
And it's just a really great short story. And it was
republished.
Yeah, it was republished last year as a single hardback in full color by the same guy who colored Bone.
Steve Haymaker.
Yeah.
Who also colored the Tales of Shazam, Monster Society of Evil.
It's Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil, which I have previously pitched.
Yeah, he also colored that, which is beautiful. And
yeah, all of his work is great.
You can go on to YouTube and watch videos of him coloring art, and it's like mesmerizing.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to go do that.
He's cool. Yeah. He's a very cool guy. One of the greatest. I think he's like one of the best colorists in comics right now. Well, he doesn't do a ton right now, but he's super talented.
I was super excited to find out about the series because it was like just wrapping up when I found out about it. I was like, oh my God, there's a whole other series by Jeff Smith that I did not know existed.
Yeah.
I totally have to go and get this. And it's really, really good.
I have yet to read the end of this series.
There is not enough science fiction comic books.
There's a glut of them now.
Yeah, now there's
really
like
cool ones coming out now.
Yeah, the last year, that's changed.
Yeah.
Like, I used to go to the science fiction section in my local comic shop, the Danger Room, and literally it was like
$3.
one half of one bookcase, and half of that bookcase was Star Wars.
Yeah.
And like that situation is changing really fast right now, which I am super grateful for. But
Federal
even like
Bureau of Physics, the trade came out this week. Like,
that's good.
yeah, there's all kinds of good science.
There's a
fiction
lot of
books
great
out
stuff. Dave, which is pretty small. It's about a robot named Dave.
Trillium.
But even a couple years
of
ago, like when Prophet first came out, I was like, oh, a good science fiction book. Like there aren't enough of those.
Oh, totally.
And then like Saga started coming out at the same time. And like suddenly there's a bunch of really good science fiction comics.
A lot of what I would call like the Sandman influenced comics. You'd have stuff like Sandman and Lucifer and Swamp Thing and Unwritten and House of Mystery. It's Mystery, right?
Yeah.
House of Mystery. Yeah, and like all of those were very much like out of that school of like Neil Gaiman fantasy, Vertigo stuff. And there was not a ton of sci-fi stuff, and now we're getting like a ton of sci-fi. I'm hoping that the next one is fantasy. Because there needs to be more fantasy books.
I think you're gonna. It's the natural. I think it's a natural progression. People are like, we need more of this, and then they're going to be like, oh, I have the wherewithal to go and do this now, so I'm going to go and do it.
There actually are a few new fantasy comics coming out, one of which I'm going to pitch next week because the last issue in the first story arc is coming out next week.
Oh, cool. I was thinking Skull Kickers, but that's like
Nope. I'm not going to say what it is, but the 5th issue is coming out next week, so you'll be able to read it before that episode comes out.
Sweet.
Your pick!
All right, yeah. I have been reading nothing but New 52 books this week. So, of course, I brought a New 52 book for you guys. This is a book we've been ragging on the New 52 for a long time, and we have yet to talk about one of the books on the show. And so I thought, well, what is a good way for us to talk about stuff but not totally hate the book, but be able to talk about, like, interesting new ideas that are coming out of the New 52, and also still kind of tie into what Toby's talking about how the change in superheroes needs to happen and certain superheroes should stay dead. And this book is Earth 2. Jamie Robinson. It's illustrated by Nicholas Scott, who I love. Super consistent art from her, I think. And it's essentially Earth 2. First issue happens. You find out that a few years ago, the wonders, quote unquote, of the universe, which is what they call them, the superheroes, have died. 5 of their big wonders died. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, and Robin. All dead. They're all gone. And no new superheroes have showed up. And so this is the story of the next wave of superheroes.
Wait a second. Power Girl is from Earth 2.
Yeah, but
so how is Supergirl?
She was Supergirl on Earth 2, and Robin is Helena Wayne, because this is a New 52. It's a reboot.
Okay.
So Helena Wayne and Kara Zor-El supposedly die, but if you've been reading World's Finest, they're actually just on Earth 1. Hiding from everyone. That's my favorite New 52 book.
Where were you guys? We were just on Earth 1.
We were hiding out on Earth 1. And so this is the next generation of superheroes, but what's really interesting about this is that it's actually an old generation of superheroes, because it's Alan Scott, and it's Jay Garrick, and it's Hawk Girl, and
I'm surprised nobody has recommended this to me.
Wesley Dodds. The Sandman.
Oh, wait a minute. Wesley Dodds is there?
Yeah, in a very different role. And
is the original Red Tornado there?
There's a different Red Tornado. It's Red Tornado Model 13 or whatever.
Okay, that's not the original Red Tornado.
No, it's
like Ma Carbuncle or something like that.
It's the android Red Tornado. It's a blending of...
She dressed up in long underwear.
It is a lady,
and had a bucket on her head.
It is a lady. Interestingly enough. And there's... who else is there? Dr. Fate, who I love, Dr. Fate. And it's like basically just the old Dr. Fate. That's the only one that feels like not a reboot.
It's like, I'm just here, dude.
It's just fucking Dr. Fate, who's awesome.
This is the JSA, basically.
Sort of, but they're young. They're all like 20.
It's like ultimate
and
JSA.
Alan Scott is gay.
Yeah, and Alan Scott is a very openly gay character in this, and a media mogul. And Jay Garrick is like this young kid whose mom is in the book a bunch. Like, he's unmarried. He's just this kid. He gets the power of Flash from Mercury, from the god of speed, of Greece, the messenger god. And so he wears... They all have different outfits than they originally wore, too, which is kind of cool. They're like complete reboots on everything. And this is the kind of thing that I was actually really excited for in the New 52. Is like, how different are we going to make the universe? And so it's cool that one generation of superheroes died out. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, They're dead. And they didn't get replacements in that new Wonder Woman, Superman, and whatever are there. And so
they're the new old superheroes.
Those were basically the old guard, and these are the new guys, and they're coming in, and they're going to be super buddies and fight everybody. And if we read this, we would read the first 15 issues, which is the first 2 trades, the 0 issue, which comes after issue 4, and the annual, which comes after issue 12. Only because I want to know your reaction at the end of issue 13. Because I'm sure it's exactly the same as mine was. And
is it me screaming the word bullshit and then throwing the comic across the room?
Maybe. I don't think it'll be that bad.
Maybe.
But it's a thing that
Could be.
My reaction was, So, you guys will have to figure that out.
Fuck.
But anyway, it's really interesting because it brings up a lot of the points that we talk about comics.
So are the first 15 collected in 2 trades, or is it 3?
It's 2, well, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Because the New 52 trades have been 6 issues each. And so I'm not sure if they included the 0 issue because they didn't in Justice League. Or actually, it may not. The 0 issue might not even be in the trade. Because I was reading it in the trade first, and then I went to single issues.
But you have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, they're out. They're on, like, a later... I think it's through 18 now, or 19 or something.
And I'm sure, like,
out.
in the worst-case scenario, you can just go on to, like, Comixology or something like that and pick it up for $1.
Oh, yeah. There's there's a lot of ways to get this. And it's an interesting read, and if you've been listening to us bitch about the New 52 forever, and you're like, no, there are good books there, you talk about it, this is one we could talk about. Or if you're like, there's nothing for me in the New 52, some of these like more off-traditional titles, like World's Finest, which I find to be kind of good, is about Huntress and Power Girl, like bumming around on Earth 2, being super best friends. Like, I kind of like that story. It's pretty decent. And it also does not feel like it needed a New 52 for that to happen, but whatever.
Right.
And so the other, we'll talk if we talk about it, but this is a good one to check out if you're kind of like looking for.
So those 2 characters are not in the Earth 2 comic, though,
Nope.
are they?
No.
Okay.
They are not. They are in World's Finest. But they mention them because everybody thinks they died.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Everyone thinks they died when Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman died.
Coolio.
All right.
I want to know what Toby's going to vote for.
Toby.
I want to know what Joe's going to vote for.
Rock, paper, scissors right now. I'll cut it out of the
I
episode.
said it first.
I'm going to vote for Earth 2.
All right.
Freakadika.
So if either of you vote for Earth 2, that's probably what we're reading.
I'm tempted to vote for Earth 2. I'm also tempted to vote for Green Lantern Willworld, but you all pitched DC books. So fuck all of you.
We got you.
Hey, it's been long enough since Infinite Crisis.
It's been 5 issues. We're fine.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's
vote
been
for-
like 6 weeks
I did not
since I've
expect
had
you guys
to
to all bring DC. I would have brought something else.
It's been 6 weeks since I've read that swill, so I can read more.
I'm going to vote for Willworld.
Very good. I'm going to vote for Rasl then.
Jard?
So then we're not reading Earth 2.
I'm going to vote for Rasl because I've yet to read the ending.
Yes!
And I really liked the first one because it came out originally in 2 big giant trades.
Yeah, it came out in 2 big giant trades and then one
2
small pocket trade that was
Yeah.
black and white and then a color hardcover.
Yeah, so I have still yet to
I'm
read
waiting to
volume
buy it
2.
from... I have held off on buying it because I want to buy it directly from Jeff Smith at Emerald City this year.
Sweet.
And get him to maybe do a little sketch or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll be in Emerald City, so email us if you're going to be there and tell us to bother you because we'll avoid you.
So you were supposed to vote for Willworld. That's what was supposed to happen
Oh.
there.
Why? How would you not know that I would want to read Rasl?
No,
I
I
said
think
that I haven't
that's
read
fine.
the ending. That's weird.
That's fine. I wanted to talk about Willworld. I didn't really...
Yeah, well.
I think that you should bring back Willworld.
Yeah,
I will.
And I'm going
I
to
will.
bring back Earth 2 every week.
And I'm probably not going to bring back Supergirl unless something happens again where I want to read it again.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We will catch you next time and read Rasl, the whole shebang, all of it.
Can you spell that for me?
It's
R-
RASL. It's actually an acronym, but I'm not going to tell you what it stands for because it's a plot point.
Rad,
Well,
awesome,
it's
super...
easy to find then now that I know how to spell the name.
I was so close!
Yep.
Lucky.
Not
You
even a
were-
little close.
You were right there.
Rad, awesome, super lucky.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
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 Bye.
Goodbye.